Is one of the most rare Porsche 964 Speedsters on the planet gonna bring big money on PCAR market, or is the fact that it's so rare and the reason why it's so rare going to hurt the auction results? Let's find out. Bit Nerds is your daily YouTube card game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds.
This car was selected by our sponsor at Our Smith, Mr. Anthony. Is it Vieira? Am I saying his last name correct? Vieira? Anthony Vieira? Anthony sent this card to me, and Anthony, I had already checked it and earmarked it, so we were on the same page. But what we're talking about, mental, is the 1994 Porsche 911 Speedster that is on PCAR Market.
Which I think I also sent this one.
This car slipped into everyone's DMs, man.
This car is showing 67,838 miles. As Speedsters were very low production, 427 that were sold in the United States alone. Many of these cars were not driven. And so you can find a low mileage Speedster with a manual transmission anywhere. But this happens to be a high mileage Speedster with an automatic transmission. Call it the kiss of death, or listen to our sponsor, JP, and follow our instructions. John, the Nerd Herd, is challenging you to go out and buy this car because it's sitting at $38,500. It's high mileage. It's automatic. This car is basically the kiss of death. Nobody wants it. We want you to buy this car, bring it back to Vegas, and then do a gearbox swap with your current 964, and then the flex of all flexes, take your now black C4 cab with an automatic and go sell it on PCAR Market and get most of your money back. So that is the challenge if you choose to accept it. I know we're not on Top Gear or anything, but that's what the challenge is. This car looks to be, it's all there. It just happens to be an automatic. They updated the seats to be the Euro spec racing buckets, which is pretty cool. It does have air conditioning. And there, what I forget to tell you, where is it located? It's in Atlanta, Georgia. So JP, I will go with you and we can drive it home together. We just have to hug the Gulf and the Mexican border so we can stay out of the snow. But what do you think, man? Pretty cool car or not?
That would be a cute look with the two of us in this thing.
Yeah.
It is really, this is a sad story. We talked about the California Roadster just a couple of weeks ago that was on, was that America Roadster? Yeah, was that on?
It was a Canadian.
Yeah, but it happened to be a Canadian version of it was some kind of Roadster, but it was basically the 964 wide body convertible. It was in Zermatt silver on like a crazy purple interior or something like that. And that one also had the tiptronic, and we were all just shocked that thing brought just over $100,000. I think it failed to sell, but the auction did get bid up to like $101,000. And I think this car is going to be similar, right? It's the kind of car that it is. If this had the normal transmission, if it had the 5-speed in it, we'd be looking at easily a $120,000-$130,000 car. But with that slushy, clunky, crappy tiptronic, I'm just not convinced. I would take everyone's challenge if I were convinced that the swap could be done for under $25,000. I know some of you guys say it absolutely can be done. I just don't believe, if someone wants to give me an actual bid for that and will deliver it for $25,000, a working manual swap, then yeah, I'm in. But I don't believe that. I mean, I don't know where you get a 5-speed G50 transmission for a 964 for $25,000, let alone doing the swap. So the swap thing just doesn't play. Yeah, go ahead, Deeb. You were going to say?
Mental, would there be some complications because JP's is an all-wheel drive 964? Is his gearbox a direct match for this two-wheel drive car?
That's a good point because mine has a viscous. So
I don't think that it is a direct matchup for this car. No, I think there would be complications on that. But
Yeah, that's what I think.
I have not had anyone on the Nerd Herd say don't do it right now.
Yeah. If someone wants to buy it for me, yeah, let's do it.
And the best one, Buddha has the best one in there. When you do this swap and you sell yours on there, leave the automatic Speedo in the Speedster.
That would be fun. I just don't. Yeah, it's getting the brain to talk to. It just the brain is set up for the automatic, so it just won't work. But anyways, yeah, I do love this car, and like the other one, I mean, I think it's going to get up there in the $100,000 range, which means even if you could do the swap for call it $30,000, I don't think it's going to pencil out. What do you think, Wade?
That's exactly the point I was going to make. You know, you could have the triple dog dare you approach, but you got to have the what's in your wallet approach. And what you're going to end up spending on this car is probably more than a 6-speed after you converted and put all the time and money and effort into it. Because of the fact that we saw that last car, granted, it was being sold by a dealer who was just completely outside the realm of reality. But the bids spoke on that car, an automatic that hit 6 figures. And this is a car that I think somebody's going to look at and be like, I can get a Speedster for, 10 grand less than a 6-speed. Sign me up. And they're going to spend like way too much money on the car. So if this was like a $60,000 car, I think you would have already put a bid in. But for the $100K, it's probably going to go for, I mean, you're just not going to make it happen.
Yeah. Mental. How about you?
I think your cheaper bet would not be just swapping the transmission, but would literally to be drop the entire all-wheel drive drivetrain out of yours. Just have the shell, roll it over, electronic brains and all, then install it. And then you would have the only all-wheel drive Speedster out there, and then just roll this entire drivetrain into yours. And that would be cheaper and easier, and that's a relative concept because you can't do it cheap. Otherwise, this car would already be at $90,000 for somebody that thought that they could make their 964 into one of these uber rare Speedsters on this one.
Yeah, you got to wonder though with his rare. How many automatics did they make of these? If you had asked me before I saw this ad, I would have told you they didn't. I know they made automatic. Yeah. They only make one 993 Speedster, and it was an automatic. Yeah.
The brains at PCAR Market say this 1994 is among 427 that were sold in the U.S. and is said to be one of only 8 cars that were equipped with the optional tiptronic transmission.
That is just, I mean, what?
And sure, so 8 cars,
but insanely stupid people.
Yeah, it's like making out with like the 8th hottest girl, and then as you start feeling things up there, you feel a lump where there should be something smooth. You get where I'm going with this
a
one.
little crying game action.
She
when
left
you
her
look
keys in her
at
pocket.
Totally.
Yeah. If I saw this car, if like I happened upon this car in a parking lot or at like a car show or something like that, I would swear that this car was a Tiptronic 964 that was converted into a Speedster, but rather than the other way around. It was like, okay, somebody chopped the windshield. So yeah, this car, boy, the one that the one that we were talking about, that Roadster, was on Cars and Bids, if I remember correctly. So that's a weird, that's a weird car, and Doug DeMuro likes weird stuff. And we know that this is on PCAR Market, and PCAR Market doesn't give a flying F what the seller wants when it comes to the reserve. They'll just let them have it. This is a car that was, this is a dealer car. So, the dealer thinks it's worth all the money in the world. They're going, oh, we got Speedster, look at it, let's go. So they probably think it's worth $200,000 or something like that. So I don't know, man. This is, if ever there was a car that was destined for the chum bucket, this has to be. I mean, just screw. Why are they even trying to auction this thing? Just put it in the chum bucket for the ridiculous number that you want, and let's move on. So, Deeb, what do you think this car is going to get bid up to and then wind up in the chum bucket for?
JP, if you're running a car on PCAR Market, isn't it already in the chum bucket? Like, is it?
That should go on our first branded T-shirt.
Yeah. All right. So, John, just an interesting thing. Occasionally, I have the Haggerty price guide open in front of me, and as a pricing adjustment for a 964 Speedster, Haggerty, who I work for, says that there is a deduction of 10% for a Tiptronic transmission, and I will pound the table and say that is horribly inaccurate. I would think it's got to be at least 30 or 40% retraction for an automatic transmission on a car like this. We saw it with that America Roadster just the other day that you were speaking about earlier. I personally think that this should be about $100,000 to $110,000 car with these miles, with the paintwork that it's had. There's some little things changed in the interior, like the seats, and they changed the door handles and the gear shifting. I don't think those things came from Porsche, or they would have verified that. So I do believe this is a $100,000 to $110,000 car. However, I don't think those numbers are going to come into play at all. I think that this car is going to stall out at around $68,000, where it will then wind up in the chum bucket for probably something north of $145,000. I'll be surprised if it's in the chum bucket for less than 125. At that point like that, then you would encourage somebody to buy it. But I think they've got an unrealistic sense of what it's worth, and I don't think anybody's going to bid on this car anywhere near $100,000 with the automatic and the higher mileage. So anyway, there you go. That's what I think is going to happen. $68,000 to you, John, and 145 in the chum bucket. Where you at?
Well, first I want to quote Anthony. He has said in the comments that I will become a legend, a god, even of the air-cooled Porsches, and I'm just that's true. That's true. I may be omitting the rest of his quote, but I'm just saying that Anthony says I'm going to be a legend in the Porsche world. So just there it is. Oh, damn it! You had to put the whole quote on the bottom. Come on. He's saying it's he's double dog daring me to do the swap. So he's messing with me a little bit.
I thought he was just talking about your beard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know I look kind of godly right now. Somebody should make a statue of me. Okay, 75,964. What do you think, Wade?
Oh man, part of me really wants to be like totally unrealistic on this car. Like, I think that there's probably 2 or 3 people out there who don't want to spend $200,000 on an actual Speedster and would happily spend $120,000 on this car and just put a Rami Show hat over the shifter and bring it to a car event like all the Corvette owners do and not say anything.
Dude, no one would guess it was an automatic if they did, and the gauge, just to take a Sharpie on the gauge.
You didn't even have to look that close. Nobody would even care.
Put a Rami Show sticker over the Speedo.
Wade, let me just give you, the car is sitting at $38,500. It'll close in 2 days, and it's only got 4 bids. So it's really struggling. Before you go do something stupid like $41,000 on a 997 cab with a blue shift knob, I just want you to know the facts.
I know. I'm still going to go a little bit higher. I think this car will probably get bid to like $80,000 is honestly my number, and it's not going to sell at 80. And the fact that it's at a dealership, they're going to put some ridiculous number on it, like 145 in the chum bucket. So, I mean, it's never going to sell, but I think that there's still some people out there who would probably almost pay $100,000 for this car and just say they own a Speedster.
The question is whether or not PCAR market has that person's eyeballs. Cars and Bids gets, I think, a lot more eyeballs, and certainly BAT. I mean, BAT, there was a black one with the 5-speed that closed for $159 the other day, just a few days ago. So
today.
Oh, was that today? Okay, yeah,
with 14,000 miles on it. 14,000 miles, which is 50,000 miles less than this car, and had the right gearbox, and it was triple black, JP. It had the Polnik package already.
So the dipshits in Oyster Bay are going to be, when that high bidder, when it fails to sell and they're making the phone calls, they'll be like, oh, there was one for $159 just the other day. You could be getting a bargain. They're going to be trying to sling that BS, and no one's going to buy that. Mental, what do you think?
I'm with Wade. I think someone who doesn't understand the tragedy of this will go, oh, only one of 8 in a limited production. And they're not going to be a Porsche person. I think they are going to get close to 100,000. And I'm going to say 94 and in the chum bucket, obviously, for, something stupid on that one. And if this car actually sells for anything under 60, it might be worth just going and finding a 964 and doing the swap and then selling your automatic 964 for whatever back on PCAR marketplace. That is
sure. If this car could be bought for 60, it'd be worth $40,000 to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be clear, what Mental just said, that was Anthony's idea. He came up with it first.
Well, if it sells for under 60. Idea. If it sells for 60, I mean, not if it sells for above 60. That's a thing. If as soon as you get over $60,000, the equation doesn't work. The problem is that I'd be keeping it at that point because that's the car I want. So I'd have, I don't think, and then selling my 964 swapped to an automatic. I'd be getting $1.89 in the deal tank.
No, because it'd be an automatic cab, bro. You could totally sell it on Facebook Marketplace and get most of your money out of it. It would be fun.
Like $12,000 for it there. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair.
Anthony picked for us this 1994 Porsche 911 Speedster with an automatic transmission and a few miles on the odometer that was listed last week on PCAR Market. The car's odometer was showing 67,800 miles. And Anthony endeavored to have me challenge JP to buy this car. Mental, we can hear you, just so you know.
Sorry.
Okay, just so you know.
Keep talking.
So Anthony endeavored to have me challenge JP to buy this car, take the gearbox, the manual gearbox out of JP's 964 convertible, and swap them, keep this car, and then take JP's automatic equipped used 964 cab and then resell it on PCAR Market, thus gaining most of his money back. I don't think John is the one that bought it because it's still for sale. But let's go over the bids really quickly. One thing is for certain, we all thought it would not break $100,000, and then we all thought it would wind up in the deal tank for over $100,000 later. So with that in mind, I started the bidding at $68,000 and said that it would wind up, in the deal tank for like close to $140,000, and we all laughed. JP came in a little higher at $75,964. Wade said $80,000, and then Mental came in at $94,000, which was the highest bid of the group. All right, you want to cover those bids real quick? So I'm seeing Randy's at 99, Anthony was at 81, Kevin at 98. Let's see, Michael was at 95, Matt was at 85. Good job, Matt. David at 89,000, Jim at 92,000. So Jim's really good. And let's see, who else did we say? Jim. I think Jim might be the closest. So anyway, our car failed to sell at Hammer at $89,500 on 28 bids. It is in the deal tank where it remains available at $135,000. So John, there's a couple of aspects to unpack there. One for me personally, as I send it to you, getting to 90 grand in the natural auction, I'm actually impressed that it got to that money. And in fact, based on seeing $101,000 for that America Roadster out of Canada on cars and bids, I would lob it over to you and say, gosh, at $89,500, should they have taken the money? I'm almost inclined to think that in a down market in the dead of winter with an automatic and miles and not the original seats and not the original stereos, what are you expecting? Because 135 isn't what you're expecting. That's a pipe dream, and that's never going to happen. But 89 grand at 90,000, I think you're kind of all there. And then $135,000, that to me is laughable. The car's not worth that kind of money. Nobody's going to give them that kind of money. I understand if you want to post it for that just to solicit offers and begin your negotiation. But let's get real. The herd has already spoken and said that your car is not even worth 90 grand. So would you, JP, have recommended they take the 90 grand, or do you think there's more in it?
Yeah, I think there is more in it. I mean, this is definitely a Speedster is a more desirable car than an America Roadster, far and away. And so I mean, yes, the America Roadster, I think had a few. It was probably like 40-something thousand miles if I remember correctly. So this being the more desirable car with 20,000 more miles than the other one, those two things should have equaled it out, which means this car should bring about $100,000. So I think they were leaving a 10 grand on the table. I don't think this car is worth $100,000 to me personally, but it is certainly the kind of car that if that other one brought this much, this one should have. And I think at this point, if you're the seller of this car, I don't know why they went to PCAR Market is really the big question. Why didn't they just go to Cars and Bids? Because that number that we're talking about on the America Roadster was on Cars and Bids, which we don't always see big numbers for Porsches, but they are definitely climbing. Doug DeMuro is doing a better and better job all the time getting that right. And it's not like Cars and Bids is a long wait time. I guess maybe this seller, Wade last week after we did the show, he started digging around while we were still in the studio, and he found an ad by the selling dealer for the car. They were asking $159,000 for it before it went on the up for auction. So they dropped their price substantially down to $135 from where they were before. But if you think 135 was unrealistic, boy, 159 was totally ridiculous, because that's how much 5-speed ones, actual manual cars with far fewer miles and better condition are going for. That's the tops. So these guys, they're stuck with it till spring. I think that there's probably 10 grand to be made in this thing. Certainly does not fit at even at $100,000. That does not work out when it comes to the whole swap thing, swap it out for a manual deal. Because which is, Anthony kept pinging me all week. You gonna buy that thing? You gonna buy that thing? You gonna buy that thing? And which I love his enthusiasm, and I love the idea. And if there was any reasonable chance that the car would have gone for $60,000, hell yeah, I would have done it. It was pretty obvious, especially after Wade had found the original ad for $159. It was like, they're not lowering that price that much.
I want to get Anthony a cattle prod that he could use on you. That's pretty funny.
Digital cattle prod. Mental, what do you think of the result of this thing?
Yeah.
Now that you're back in the seat.
Oh, just barely. I'm with the herd. Really, dude. You should have taken the money. I don't think this is owned by a Porsche enthusiast. I think this is owned by someone who...
It's a dealer.
Yeah, basically they're like, oh, we have one of 8. It's worth 80. It's worth all of the money because it's more rare, and they don't recognize it. That's not how Porsche enthusiasts work.
Yeah, we've talked about it on other auctions. Sometimes when a dealer gets a specific car, they don't know anything about Porsches, but they know just enough to get them in trouble. They've heard, you've got a used car sales manager at the Stellantis store, and somehow they get something like this on trade-in, and they just look up 1 or 2 YouTube videos and they hear how crazy Porsches are, and they look up in the, if you look at KBB, right, or their little black book or any of that kind of stuff, none of these guys that the dealers use really acknowledge how different the values are when it comes to 3 pedals versus 2 on these cars. Even with the modern stuff, like none of them acknowledge it. If you go on KBB or NADA online, just the regular retail ones, the stuff that's available for Joe Schmoes, they never. A lot of times they'll say that the manuals are worth less than the automatics because the automatics cost more in originally. So the information, unless you're an actual enthusiast, unless you're one of us nerds, and oftentimes sales managers at dealerships are not car nerds. They're just pencil pushers. They're just number pushers. They're bean counters.
Pushing 10, yeah.
Pushing 10. They could give a rat's ass if a car is a Kia or a Porsche or a Mini Cooper, right? They just don't care. They're just looking at numbers and books and sliding stuff around. And I can't tell you how many dealers I've been to that don't even know what bring a trailer is. Because I do.
Crazy.
It is, right? I mean,
That's
how many?
Crazy.
It's unbelievable in 2024 that any dealership that's worth anything can be operating without knowing that these auction sites are how prevalent they are. That just boggles my brain.
Outside of the pure volume of eBay, it's the greatest auction platform in the world, and easily the greatest car auction platform in the world.
Well, and it's the greatest comp provider, right? I mean, if you're a used car sales guy, or if you're a used car sales manager and you're bringing in used cars, it's pretty easy to know how much a 2022, Kia whatever is worth, right? Because those are, you can pretty easily compare apples to apples. But you start getting into classic stuff or enthusiast stuff, where do you go for that information? I just said that you can't get that info.
Mannheim is kind of where all the real, like Malcolm, Mac uses Mannheim, and there's a ton of data there. But those are all wholesale numbers. What you get with PCAR, with Bring a Trailer, is you're getting an entire database of retail numbers. Yeah, and that is valuable, especially
in real time too, because you can see
absolutely.
Absolutely. Anyway. All right. Well, what do you guys think of the results of this Speedster with 2 pedals? Do you agree with us that is an abomination from Porsche, that the car should not have even been built, and whoever bought this thing should have done the world a service and just driven it off a pier into the ocean, never to be seen again? Or do you think this is the perfect pleated pants PCA member guy who maybe doesn't have a left leg, and he's like, hey, I only have 1 foot and I still want to drive a really cool car? You're the only guy, look, if you're a veteran or something like that, you're the only person that has an excuse to drive this thing. And how awesome would that be if you're at the car show and you see the Speedster and you look inside and you're like, oh, 3 pedals, and then you look over and some guy with a mechanical second leg rocks up and you're like, okay, yeah, you're awesome.
That is hilarious. But I will say this: I race cars with gentlemen that are missing appendages, veterans. None of them would drive this car.
They're like, nope. Yeah. Even they wouldn't do it. All right, well, let's move on. Hey guys, thanks for watching this clip of the Bid Nerds podcast. Play along with us live every Sunday and Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. on YouTube. And see if your bids stack up to the rest of the nerd herd in the chat live. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Nerd! Get those nerds!